Good morning. Welcome to the Marion County Board of Commissioners meeting. It's Wednesday, July 18th, 2018. We are in the Senator Hearing Room at Courthouse Square, and we will begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, well, we have no presentations this morning. No one signed up for public comment. Commissioner Cameron is not with us today, so Commissioner Brentano gets to make all the motions. And we have a fairly lengthy consent agenda, not all that bad, but.
No hard words, I see. Madam Chair, if I could, I'd make a motion to approve the consent calendar this morning. On it, or in it, is under Board of Commissioners, no LCC applications with recommended approval. U.S. Market Number 1, DBA 5 River Management Incorporated in Salem, and Fossil and Fawn, LLC in Jervis. Business Services, approve a recommendation to adjust pay grade upward and update specifications for classification 619, Juris Doctor Prosecution. Finance, approve a quick claim deed to convey real property tax ID R77937 adjacent to 2950 Hollywood Drive Northeast, Salem, to A-Team Services LLC. Health, approve the contract for service with Cheryl Lynn Cook for $187,200 to provide psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner services through June 30th, 2020. Approve an order, and this is under Public Works, approve an order appointing Kevin Hines and Scott Anderson to the Solid Waste Management Advisory Council with terms ending June 25th, 2022. And the Treasurer's Office approve a resolution establishing a change fund for the Juvenile Department in the amount of $200.
And I will second your motion. Any discussion on any of those items?
Nope.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those are approved. So we have one action item today, no public hearing. It's going to be a real short meeting.
Oh, no, I've got questions.
This is under Business Services. Consider a recommendation to establish and adopt two classifications, Information Technology Security Analyst and Information Technology Systems Architect. And Scott Emery, our IT Department Director, is here under Business Services to tell us why these classifications are necessary, I'm sure, right?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
And to answer any questions you may have about these roles. The first is a brand new security analyst position that allows the county to actually have a dedicated focus to information security. The intent of this individual is actually to establish a security program for the county, which actually makes up three different key elements. One being security policies, so we know where the boundaries are in and around our data and our information. Two, to educate the county staff to make sure they understand that there is security as part of their job on a daily basis. And the third part is to help with security engineering. That's the opportunity to go with the number of initiatives that are across the lines of business and make sure that those systems are secure. So that's the first role. The second role is around the information technology architect. And this particular role is about going through and helping those lines of business make sure that they're optimizing those designs when they're putting the new systems together. In the past, a lot of those initiatives have been standalone point designs, and that's going to create these different, what we call data silos. Same information held multiple times. Simple things like citizens' addresses is a common one, where in fact we'll have many databases with the same information. Having an architect will help us be able to go through and refine and optimize what we do from an operational standpoint. And with that, I'm happy to answer any and all questions you may have.
Why don't you go ahead? You said you had a lot of questions.
I was lying to you.
Well, just on the second one, it just triggered a thought. So when you're saying that there are multiple databases, is that also in the email systems, like with the, because I know, like, just from the work that I do where I have staff contacting multiple lists, and we have legislators on one, and, you know, so they're on the county fair list, and they're on this list, and I think they've consolidated some, but then you're updating here, you know, to try to make those align.
Right, that's a very good example. There's a couple different key pieces to this. Are we actually, in our day-to-day work throughout the county, entering the same information twice, or more than twice in some cases? Once the data is created, now we're storing it, the same information multiple times. So it's very easy to see quickly if I do an attachment to an email and I send it to 10 people, we now have 10 copies of the same information across. So when we look at our operational costs from IT side, specifically around storage,
Right.
it is growing, it's escalating at a multiple factor. I mean, we're talking about 70% increase over 1 year in the amount of storage. But when we go through, we start to triage and analyze what we're doing, we're storing multiple copies of the same document over and over again. So that's the opportunity, again, to squeeze it back to the way operationally we should be more sound and efficient.
That's great. We need that. You think one person can do that, or?
This is a journey. We're going to start down the path. I think this is true on security as well. But I will tell you, having these roles put in place is really a foundational element. We've had several business working sessions as of late, and they all keep coming back to the same themes. Do we have a sound design? Are they secure? And again, we need that expertise to help us flush that out.
Great, thank you.
The one question I did have, and I think you're referring to it, we had a meeting yesterday on a potential radio system, and I don't understand the technical things, but it bleeds over and uses the internet in some function, touches, and then suddenly new issues come up in security, access, hacking, et cetera. My question specifically, Scott, will this new person be able to, is that the type of person you picture working on that problem, or just similar ones?
Absolutely. You're spot on. Actually, both of these roles will be
Okay.
vital to those kind of new systems. We see the kind of the lessons learned that's happening out at Deschutes County with their radio system, and a lot of it goes right back to some of the basic underpinnings. Did they think through what the architecture and design was going to look like in the end? Did they understand what they were building? Did they know it was secure? I'm going to learn from the others so that we don't have those same experiences, and absolutely having these roles will be front and center on these new initiatives.
If I could, I heard Deschutes mentioned yesterday, so what problem did they have briefly, or?
So I'll do a very quick summary. They did have outside design consultants build out a plan. When they went to go implement the plan, they didn't fully follow the design implementation recommendations under concern of cost. That ended up giving them reduced coverage. They also found that there was difficulties in converting from the older analog to the new digital. They didn't have staff trained, so there was a lot of knowledge that wasn't there in place when they turned the systems on. This is common to any new system. How are we going to train our staffs to use the system? Is that baked into the plan? Once we design something, do we actually follow the design? Do we understand the cost of operating the system when we're done? Some shortcuts were taken, and I think they're now paying for it pretty dearly.
But I didn't hear you say, and I thought it was going to be that there were security issues, they were hacked, et cetera. And that didn't happen.
Not specific to the security element. It's really right now where they're at. They have operational challenges. But again, because they're going to a digital system, that adds another layer, and that layer is security that they didn't have to deal with before.
All right, thank you. Madam Chair, if I could, then I'd like to make a motion that we do establish and adopt two classifications, an information technology security analyst and an information technology systems architect.
And I will second your motion, and I know you'll continue reporting to us about how these efforts are going as we move along.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that motion is approved, and that is our only action item today. Thank you, Scott. There are no public hearings. I'll go ahead and read the Wednesday to Wednesday calendar. These are meetings where 2 or 3 commissioners will be in attendance between July 18th and July 25th, 2018. We're just completing our board session. This is not the record for the shortest board session. I think that is 3 minutes, but but it's close. Thursday, tomorrow, July 19th at 8 a.m. is the City of Salem, Marion County meeting. That will be held at the Sassy Onion Grill, 1244 State Street in Salem. At 11:30 tomorrow, Thursday, July 19th, will be the Marion County Sheriff's Office Parole and Probation Appreciation Week Barbecue at the Marion County Sheriff's Office Transition Center, 3950 Almsville Highway, Northeast Salem, and I hear they have an outstanding keynote speaker.
I wondered if you'd come.
Right. Myself, no. I still have to put that
Now,
together.
don't take this personally, but I'm going to be attending the
That's what I heard, all
Okay.
right. And then at the same time, 11:30 to 1, is the Marion County Juvenile Probation Appreciation Week Barbecue, and that will be held at the Community Connection Center at 3020 Center Street Northeast in Salem. Monday, July 23rd at 8:30 is our weekly calendar review. That's held in the Silverton Conference Room up here on the 5th floor at Courthouse Square, followed by management update at 9 o'clock, same room, followed by a Board of Commissioners Chief Administrative Officer meeting at 11 in the Silverton Conference Room. Also, an executive session is noticed if needed pursuant to ORS 192-662 A, B, D, F, H, and I, which I think are all of the options that we might have. Then on July 23rd, Monday at 1:30 is the semi-annual service district meeting. That will also be held in the Silverton Conference Room, 5th floor, Courthouse Square. Then July 24th, Tuesday, 8:30 a.m. is our Community Corrections Board meeting. That's also in the Silverton Conference Room, 5th floor, Courthouse Square. And then next Wednesday, July 25th at 9 a.m., we'll be back here in the Senator Hearing Room for our regular Wednesday board session. So tell us about the Marion County Fair, since I missed it.
Well,
It was hot, that's
it
what I
was
heard, very
hot,
hot.
and in hindsight, we need to make ways, I think, and I'm sorry if I didn't call it at the time, but to make it more comfortable, whether it's awnings or misters or something. You can't control the weather, but we need to be ready to help it. But the event itself, the grounds look wonderful, people were happy. It was all fun. Kids, everything was good. It was
I
just
know
all
they
in
put
one
so
big-
much work into it, and
Yes,
then, and I was watching the weather the weekend before. In fact, I was confused, thinking the fair was the weekend
Oh.
before for a day or two. I was thinking, wow, it's in the 80s,
That'll
perfect
be
weather.
perfect.
And then then I see it's the heat wave coming, and I'm like, oh dear.
Even my daughter, they went to, they had orders to purchase an animal from one youngster there, and they were there all set up, and she just couldn't take it anymore. They had to go home before they got to it. It just
Yeah,
was so
just
hot.
too hot.
Since I'm talking, I'll just continue. You were gone in NACO, and I'd like to hear a little bit about it if you get a chance, but my
Sure.
highlight in the last week or so was testifying to City Council, Salem, about the State Street plan. I think you've been following
I
that.
actually took that home and read about it last night, so tell me what you told them.
Well, I was pretty happy with it. Told them, all for development, but this is one of it's actually the second main east-west thoroughfare, but I think that Mission Street, a lot of the times is just unusable.
Right.
I know that I go home and others go home on State Street, so I said, just be aware that this has impacts on the city, that we made an investment downtown, our customers, our citizens, employees need to get here. Don't make it too difficult. And I thought I was pretty effective, to be honest. Didn't tell them do something or not, but at least understand the impacts to the entire transportation network. But then I watched the motion, and one of the counselors he said he did a little unscientific survey, drove rush hour and noon through this section. They're gonna make one 14th through 17th, I think. It is.
Right,
So
one lane with a turn lane in between, it said, or did they keep the turn
I'm
lane?
not sure.
Well, it said in the
There was one-
documentation
There
there
was
was a
one
turn
that
lane.
did wide sidewalks, bikes, 2 lanes, even a median, and I don't know
Yeah.
if that's the diet one. I kind of think it is. But they're going to make that section. So, so he said it takes I'm making numbers up, 60 seconds, but so then he did studies when they've done this in other areas, it added like 20%. So it's 80 seconds. He says, come on, that doesn't matter. But what he didn't do is talk about the percentage or the accordion effect of what, if you block off State Street right there, I can see it immediately. We got the trains too, but 12th Street locked and then on downtown.
Because people are waiting to
And so
turn
it's, so
left.
it isn't
onto-
just the effect of this little section that
Right.
you should be looking at, and that was my whole point,
Right.
that this is a whole section. So, a little disappointed perhaps, but that seems to be what they like, to reduce the ability of a transportation system through Salem, but that's where we are. I had another point, but I just probably let it go. Yeah, I can't think of it, but I tried.
Uh-huh.
Got on record this time. I didn't get into the whole story. I'll tell the story now, just in case somebody's watching, about, these bike lanes showing up. And I told them, well, that was a horrible deal. After they showed up, I talked to the city staff, and they said, well, you received notice, and we got no comment. And then she said, as a matter of fact, the hearing was held in your building. Oh, so So I started out saying, I really, just because of that, I want to make sure
Right.
that I make a comment. The story I didn't tell, and I'm not against bikes per se, but just if they interfere with transportation, and it shouldn't, it should be complementary. But they took away our lanes, and I just kind of do my own unofficial survey, and I've watched, 3 or 4 years they've been in? And I'm up to 8 people using the bikes, and I know the thousands of cars. And that's just me coming in and looking out my window, but what I laugh about is 2 of those 8 were actually on the sidewalk, so I'm not quite sure how to count them, but I did include them, to be fair.
Right.
So,
Well, and that too, the fact that there are rarely bikes out there, but also, even with the turn lane that they added, and they did accommodate us by adding that left turn lane, so the buses could get out and our employees could get out. When I used to come out of the parking garage, it was never blocked up. You
No.
know, that was flowing freely and you could get out. And now the traffic at 5 blocks up
Absolutely.
in the parking garage and all the way down,
there's no
Church
use even
Street.
trying.
right, yeah. So, yeah, most of the time I'm not leaving right at 5 o'clock, but on the days that I go visit my mother, I try to get out a little bit before 5, but it never used to be a problem. And then and like you're talking about, so it gets compounded on the street that we're at, and then that compounds it on Marion Street. I mean, Marion Street was already a mess, and now you got 2 streets that are messes, so.
But it's interrelated and matters, so
Right.
anyway. I got it figured that they won't build it till I'm probably out of here, so just everybody else can suffer, and I'll just say,
Yep.
I tried.
Well,
Now, NACO.
I was reminded that when, in 1988, we moved in July into the house that we're just selling next week, we're closing. And that fall, I got a notice from some neighbors that they were all going down to City Hall because there was a plan to make Battle Creek, Pringle Road and Battle Creek, I think into an arterial as opposed to a collector, maybe. So right now, it's 2 lanes and a center lane, which I think is a collector. And if it was an arterial, it would be more, like it could be 4 lanes with a center lane. It would be, and they also had like a thing going through Hillficker and taking out part of the neighborhood too, which I don't know whether that was somebody's interpretation. Now that I'm in the business of looking at these things, people get riled up about things sometimes that aren't really true. But people were really alarmed about what it was going to do to the
Just as an
neighborhood.
aside, I was involved with collecting your garbage badly during those times, but I don't remember that issue.
Right,
coming
so
up.
I went down to City Hall with everybody else,
All right.
and they made us buttons, and I didn't say anything, but I stood with probably 50 of my neighbors who all came down to oppose this plan. And so the city council said, forget it, if the neighbors are this upset, we're not
Oh,
gonna,
good.
we're not gonna do anything, so we won. And then, fast forward 20 years, the Fairview complex, there was the plan to build all of
But
those
it
houses
never
in
has
Fairview.
done anything, has it?
There's been a little bit over by
Okay.
Leslie Middle School and kind of back in, but it's not been developed yet. Fairview was sold in 2001, but the recession came. But anyway, I think I called over to the city and asked them something about that. Were you going to put in lights, all these people that were going to be in? And they said, well, do you want to make Battle Creek an arterial? And I'm
Oh,
like,
no,
oh, no,
we've been
no,
there.
no, never mind. So sometimes you have to be careful about what you wish for, but it's starting to back up now too, even though they've made the improvements on that corner where Kubler is, and now, of course, there's the plan to put a Costco. At least that's what we're hearing.
Yes,
Up
and
on
somebody
the,
said, I saw, and I don't know officially, it could be
southeast side.
just like as big as a Woodburn outlet, and
yeah,
so.
on the neighbors there are just like crazy. And so then you start thinking, what is all of that gonna do? Where right now Kubler is already, they've widened it, but it's still a congested area in there, so. It'll be interesting to see
Just
how things
because
play
I
out.
thought of what I forgot, that the state street, back to that just for a second, the consultants figured like 30% of the traffic would divert to others, which means Mission, which you can't use, and Center, which isn't a good alternative. There's, but
Yeah,
they didn't care either.
so,
All right, now NACO.
NACO, so it was held in Nashville.
Why did I think, was LOC or something doing something? I saw Mayor Clark, or she just on her tour, she was in Washington, and
Yeah, we were in the summer
in
conference.
Nashville.
Yeah, the summer conference is always in a state where the president, at the time they start planning it, is from. So whoever was from Tennessee in that county was the president of NACO. Like when Bill Hansel was president
Yes.
of NACO, a couple of years after that, we had the conference in Portland.
Oh, okay.
So it gets to be held in the state of the president. So anyway, never been to Nashville, so that was kind of fun. It was at the Gaylord Marriott Opryland, which is
I've
the
been
most
there.
gigantic hotel I have ever been
I've
to.
been to that hotel. I've been to.
Yeah, the Gaylord, it's right on the freeway there. It's got, well, I posted on Facebook, if you looked at my pictures.
I've seen some, but I
Yeah,
didn't
but
recognize.
it's got this huge convention center, all these rooms. I got lost going to my room.
Oh,
I checked in at the
wrong
desk.
tower.
Well, no, and so they wanted me to go up 2 escalators to get to the next floor, and then there's a walkway, and then you can get to, and the rooms are in like 3 different buildings, all right, and just like floors of the masses and numbers of buildings. So I have this gigantic bag that I took because I was gone, on vacation before that with the family, so I had 2 weeks worth of stuff. So I went in an elevator, and then when I came off the elevator, for some reason, I went exactly the opposite direction of what I thought I was going the way the map said, but I was turned around, and so I got off and went right instead of left or whatever. And so I'm ending up walking down a walkway that looks kind of like the walkway, although it had more of an angle than the one on the map. And the only place it went to was the spa
Oh, well,
and the fitness room, all right? So, no rooms down there. So a very nice gentleman that worked there, I don't know if he was a maintenance guy or
you're
whatever,
very
he
wrong.
stopped me and he said, "So do you know where you're going?" And I said, "I'm not sure." And so he turned me around, and then we walked like 5-10 minutes before we finally got back to the place where I was supposed to go, and then down the road and stuff. So I just kind of, and then I checked in, and then I actually walked where I had to go the next morning because they had a first-timers breakfast, and I was asked to be an ambassador because I'm on the board for that breakfast. And so because my plane arrived at 7 and they had the meeting at 5:15 about what you were supposed to do as an ambassador,
Oh.
I was supposed to show up at 7:15 to this meeting, and I thought, okay, just, if this is any indication, I need
this
to
might
practice.
go.
So I practiced that night, found it. It wasn't that hard to find the convention place, and I was pretty close to it in my room. So that was all great, and then we had quite a few people there from Oregon.
I saw Craig Pope in a Facebook post.
Right. We had, and there were a number of different workshops. They had a board forum and a board meeting. There was couple luncheons that I went to around healthcare, and second one was connecting healthcare with social determinants of health, which I'm really interested in. That's like housing and education and transportation, things that affect healthcare, but you don't think of as traditionally healthcare. And so that was really interesting. I went to my Justice and Public Safety Committee meeting on the first day, and those are all-day meetings. And they had some speakers around the right to counsel, civil right to counsel, and criminal right to counsel. And then we worked on the resolutions, which was a packet. It was 83 pages long of resolutions, and went through them one by one to vote on them. And
I'm suddenly glad you went, but I probably never will.
so really interesting, though, because there were 2 of them in the packet that we got stuck on. So we had, I think, an hour to go through 83 pages. And they go pretty quickly because some of them are ones that have, just like public lands. I think you're involved with that one. They're resolutions that they've done for several years, but you have to re-up them every year or they
Sure,
don't
still
continue,
current.
right? Yeah, there were a lot of them on FEMA, emergency management, mitigation, those types of things. But, and then some for reauthorizing Second Chance Act, Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act, and so on. But the first one was a platform change, and it was on pretrial justice, which, we've had that big report here on changing our pretrial system, and they talked about how we could reduce the numbers of people in jail pretrial. And it's what would you say? It's a very nuanced conversation, because on the one hand, you want to protect public safety, and you want to protect, you want people to show up for trial, right? But on the other hand, the system that we have tends to let people out if they can make bail, but if they're indigent, even if they're lower risk, they're staying in jail because they can't make bail. And so that's the issue we're trying to solve, is to let the lower risk people out, even no matter what their income is, but make sure we keep the people in jail that need to be there. The recommendations are to use evidence-based assessments, but nothing's foolproof, and so judges are a little wary, and district attorneys can be very wary, right? So this platform change was to not keep people in jail if they couldn't pay. I mean, the language was very similar to what we've been looking at here in Marion County. And the conversation started out with a district attorney from I don't know where, expressing all of his concerns about, letting people out of jail if they don't need to be there. And then just one after the other just started to, pick it apart. And then a lot of them have bail bondsmen, right? And so
Yes.
there was
They've tried to start that here over the years.
right, so they had a conversation about eliminating practices of bail bondsmen if the people were lower risk. And boy, that set people off. Oh, no, our bail bondsmen,
mess with our system.
they need to be able to do what they want to do. And so you have multiple systems across the nation. So, and then the conversation ended when a lady stood up and she says, I think we're missing the big picture here. She says, if you don't want people in jail, then don't commit a crime.
Thank you.
Right, and she sat down, and I went, all right, that's very interesting. So they tabled the motion and just said it needed more work. And then the other one that didn't pass the committee was shackling juveniles, which that you know how Faye felt about that. And then we had
I've told you my first experience. I just walked in here, they gave me a tour of Juvenile. It's bothered me for years. I'm
Right.
not making this up. Why? What could you have possibly done that you need to be held like that? But
And
anyway.
so Oregon, we just passed a law in the last legislative session that forbids us for
I actually
shackling
didn't know that,
juveniles,
yeah.
right, yeah. And that was one that we followed with the Public Safety Council, and several people from our public safety system actually supported that and testified for it and so on. Oh, you wouldn't believe, people were like, this is gonna cost you money, we have like 8 juveniles lined up in shackles, and now, our state passed a law, and now we can only have 2 in there at a time, and it increases your security, and one bolted, and we had to go after him, and,
Risk to the officers.
right, yeah, and everybody's like, oh, okay, well, we don't wanna do that. And, I didn't argue for them because it was such a lost cause. You had multiple people there, and obviously, if you have if you don't have consensus among the group, it's not the time when
Not
you're
in
looking
that
at
larger
83
group,
pages to
no.
try to work out individual issues. And so Sally Heyman, who was the former chair of the committee last year, and she's vice chair this year, suggested tabling both and then
Back to
taking them back
committee.
to subcommittees and working them through the group so that they
So I
got more
two.
consensus.
One that's going to, I know, there's such a liberal conservative battle in this country now. Did that show up at NACO? Could you?
Yes.
Okay.
And so we got into the board meeting. So once all of the committees pass all of their resolutions, then they go to the board, kind of like our legislative committee at AOC, but and the board is, well more than 100 people. I mean, it's a very large group. Oregon gets 2 representatives, so if we get 2, you can imagine other
Sure.
states, get more. And so Craig Pope and I are now on the board. And so each committee chair gets up and gives the report of their committee. And they basically say, we passed 5 platform changes and 6 resolutions, and everybody's got them in a packet now that's like, 200 pages long because it's everybody's
Sure.
stuff. And then they pull ones that might be controversial. Sorry, I've got
And
tickle in my
what,
throat.
didn't get them all? Is that what you're going to say? Or
Right, so Oregon's marijuana one got pulled because there was a platform and it actually passed out of the Justice and Public Safety Committee with not a whole, it was toward the end and everybody was kind of worn out from the other 2 discussions.
Well,
So that's one thing, but
give me the gist of what that
Okay,
was
so-
in favor of marijuana.
no, it wasn't. It was
Oh.
actually put out by California, who we're not always aligned with, Oregon and Washington, I think, Association of
That
Counties.
sounds like
So-
pro-marijuana.
So, no, Rob Bovett was involved in putting it in. It's urging Congress that in those states that have legalized marijuana, to encourage states to regulate processing, growing, retail, and to allow them to put in regulations around youth and access and,
Times, et
right, and right, so that, so that you get ahead of it. And it was really interesting because Colorado, their county commissioner said, boy, this is really important. We should have had this
Wish
before.
we had. Oh,
Right,
really?
yeah. So there was only one person that spoke on that and they spoke in favor of it. A couple questions and that was it. But of course, because it's about marijuana, and if people don't read it carefully, if they're pro or against it, they split on that one. So that one was pulled. There was one that was pulled on veterans just because the law that it referenced had actually already passed. So they wanted to correct it and make it broader. So that was kind of an easy one. And then the third one was the Keystone Pipeline.
Oh, there we go.
That there was a resolution that we should be, that NACO should support construction of this Keystone Pipeline. And the committee chair said that
And
it.
you voted aye for me, didn't you?
I did.
Thank you.
Craig voted no. And
asking about
on a
that.
process issue, because
All right.
the committee chair said this is one that we've had for several years, we're just re-upping it. But people were obviously taking sides based on not just the substance of whether the Keystone Pipeline ought to be built, but on the political environment that we have right now and who's for it and who's against it and all that kind of thing. And so one of the commissioners that is on the executive committee moved to pull it from the agenda, which I think a lot of people thought meant that they would just have it at the end, which that word should have been segregate, but when she said pull, then that means that actually it's just dead.
Yeah.
And so it passed by a voice vote overwhelmingly, and I voted no. And so then they moved on to the next item, next committee report, and then a few people were talking.
Say,
And
wait a minute, what
past
did we just
president
do?
asked if we could reconsider. It's too late, the parliamentarian comes up, too late to reconsider. So, there were a lot of people that were disgruntled. So at the tail, I wasn't the past president at that point, it was somebody else on the board. So then when we got to the tail end, Glenn Whitley, who was a past president, you might have met him, he's from Texas. And he asked if we could, he made a motion to reconsider. And so then the motion passed to reconsider, and then they did a vote, and they were really clear about, that if you're in favor of the resolution, restoring it, stand up. If you're not in favor, then you stand up. And a handful of people stood up on restoring it, and about 3/4 of the room stood up on not restoring it. And
Means no support for the Keystone Pipeline.
well, the argument that they made is, so why is this on NACO's platform, our agenda? The things that we send our staff to the Hill to lobby for are lobbying Congress to pass laws or administrative agencies to pass or not pass rules. This is something that's owned by a all-Canadian company now. It's got its permits, it's on its way, it's gotten the permission it needs, so what is our business now even being in the middle of it?
Okay, I get it.
So that's why Craig voted the other way, but as a symbol, I voted for you, so.
Now, my last question I have, normally there's a keynote speaker. Was there anybody, who was it, and anybody of great interest and thought? Nothing stuck with you? I
So
see
there
it
were,
already.
well, there were two general session speakers. The one was a football player and was motivational, and I didn't go, I'm sorry.
Who
But
was it? You don't even know.
I can look it up.
That's all right.
This is the problem I have with sports. And then Marion Wright Edelman was there, and I was really looking forward to hearing her, because she actually, the president, Roy Charles Brooks, is also from Texas, same county as Glenn Whitley. And his platform this year was on early childhood development and reducing poverty. And so it was all about kids and poverty and all the things I worked on, for years and
Sure.
years and years. So when I went to the board retreat in December, Marion Wright Edelman was there, but I caught that flu when I was in Texas. So I went to one
Wait,
board.
and I didn't cause it this time? Is that what you're telling me?
No,
You don't know.
I don't know. Anyway, I came down with it, like I went to the one evening meeting the first night I was there, and then that night, the next day, I was just like sick. And so then I tried to go the next morning, and I was just fading, and so I left, and then I ended up going to urgent care and getting antibiotics, and, and I just couldn't go to anything, so I missed her. So she was gonna be here at this time, but when I made my reservations and stuff, they didn't have the agenda set. They had her at 1:30 on Monday, and my plane left at 3:00
Oh,
on Monday,
so
so
you're
I
not
missed her
gonna be able
again,
to-
yeah, so. But way back in the 1990s, when I was working for the State Commission on Children and Families, we had an opportunity, I can't remember, I think I went to the Children's Defense Fund conference back in Washington DC with Sarah McDonald, actually. That's
Oh,
when-
really?
Yeah, way back when. And she was there and actually was there throughout the session. And I remember getting to shake her hand and talking with her briefly. And, it was like we were just rubbing shoulders with her. And her son, I think his name is Jonah Edelman, was in Portland and actually worked with the Children's First for Oregon. And we went out working on that. Remember they were trying to get a fee to support after-school programs in
Yes.
Salem. Can't remember, Kids and Cops.
Yeah.
And he came down from Portland
Trying to help
and
that.
walked in the neighborhood just south of Kubler with me. And so I spent like a couple hours with him, putting flyers on people's doorsteps and talking about Kids and Cops back in the
So I know
early
the answer to
2000s.
this because you made me think of sports, but Oregon State had just completed a pretty spectacular thing. Did anyone comment on that at all?
All right, so
Yes, they did.
So in the final business meeting, which was Monday morning, and this is where they elect the second vice president, and the officers are very much like the pattern that we use at our state association, which is the first president moves up to be president.
Sure.
The first vice, do we have a chair? We have a chair, right? First vice chair moves up to be chair, and then the second vice chair moves up to be first. And so the seat that's the contentious seat is who gets to fill the
new
second,
one,
yeah, the second position, and then they'll take 2 years and move up, and then the immediate past president, I think it's president anyway, stays on the board, on the executive committee for another year for continuity. So it was really funny, because Marion Borgeson is now the second vice president. She ran last year, and she was the only person that ran. I mean, it was the fastest election you'd ever seen, because it was only one candidate. This year, there were 4 people running. A guy named Larry Johnson from Georgia, who had been really active in human services, and he got all of California's votes. So, I mean, that was like 200 some votes, right? And the votes are weighted by population. So Marion County gets 6 votes out of it, and Umatilla gets 2, and Polk, I think, gets 2, and some of the real small counties get 1. Oregon had 84 votes if everybody had shown up from all the counties, but of course, not every county shows up at this conference. And then a woman named Barbara Sharif, who is a PhD. No, she's a medical doctor. That's right, she's a medical doctor, and she's from Florida, and she ran a really good campaign. I got emails from her all the time. And then Ray Jeffers, who is with the Rural Action Caucus. He's been the chair of that. So a lot of, like Craig and some other people that I talked to had known him through the
Even that's a familiar
ONC,
name to
and
me,
yeah,
yes.
and I think he's from North Carolina, I think is the state that he's from. And then Gary Moore, who was a county judge from Kentucky. And he had served on the board the longest, had chaired committees, had transportation committee he currently chairs. So I was supportive of him just because I had observed him in the board and been impressed with the way that he
I
handled
hate
himself.
to interrupt you. I'm still not getting, how is this coming back to Oregon State baseball?
All right.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm giving you a lot of background, digressing. So the way that it works then is that every state they have like balls in like for the lottery, okay? And like they have people that are selected as a reader and a selector, and then so the states are selected at random. So they pull out, so Alabama's not, is not necessarily first. So it could be anybody, right? And then they have microphones set up, and the representative from each state goes down, and then they say, the Ohio, the great state of the Green Bay Packers. Am I getting there? Are they from Ohio? Who are they from? Anyway, where are they
Green Bay,
from?
Wisconsin. But anyway.
Yeah, Wisconsin, all right. Anyway, and so Hawaii was like the home state of Marcus Mariota, and then we're all like, wait a minute, he's our guy because he's from Oregon, right? So there were 3 ballots to select, all right, because you have to get 1,290 votes is a majority out of the group that we had there in order to win. And so on the first ballot, Barbara dropped off because she got the lowest vote. On the second ballot, nobody drops off if there's 3 candidates, but Ray Jeffers got significantly fewer votes. And then on the last ballot, it went to the very last state, and finally Gary Moore tipped over by, I think, maybe 20 votes or something like that. It was really, really close. So it took like an hour and 15 minutes to go through all of this. So the states had to go up and do this 3 times, all right?
Every vote counted.
Yeah, and the first time it was really long because everybody, started in on, the great state with its Great Lakes and blah, 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 And then the second time you're like, all right, we're just going to get to the vote. But then some of them had to say, like Washington said, well, and for example, we have more potatoes than Idaho. And then when Idaho gets up, they go, well, we've got better potatoes than Washington. So when Craig got up, I think the 3rd time is when he said, home of the Beaver baseball, who won the championship. So that's when it came up.
I'm
Long
sorry
answer
I
to your
asked.
question.
But at least people knew. I can take that.
Yeah,
Right?
except he was doing it like when everybody was going, oh, would you just shut up and
Yeah.
just say how many votes you have for who.
I was
I
hoping
wanna
somebody
get out of
from
here.
Arkansas would say the Chunkers or something terrible.
Yeah, I can't remember the first one that went, I think was Alabama, and they didn't say anything. They just gave their vote. And then when they went up the second time, they're like, okay, we were first, so now we get to do this. But then that gave license for everybody else to like fill in anything that
Sounds
they
like
forgot the
fun.
first time, so that was pretty fun. Yeah, but it was
So
quite the intense, because they have like a PowerPoint slide up there, and they're actually calculating the votes as they go up, so you can see, like they bring up the state, and you can see like how many votes are going for each candidate, and then it starts tallying and then you can see
So
what it
next
costs
year
like.
Kevin will go, and maybe that we'll get a little more sports reference.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about that. I did go to the Grand Ole Opry.
Oh, yeah.
The Oregon delegation, we bought tickets before we left, and Mackenzie Farrell arranged all of that, and so there were quite a big group from Oregon.
Anybody
Uh,
famous?
Kathy Mattea, you might have
I've
heard of her.
it, but my wife would know them all.
Stephen Chapman Hill, is that his name?
So bottom line, was it good?
Great.
Oh, okay.
You know, I don't listen to country music as a rule, and so I didn't know many of the artists, and I didn't know really any of the songs. But it was so upbeat and positive and a really well-run show, really.
People enjoyed it?
Yeah, everybody really
I
enjoyed it. It
think
was
you had
great.
one picture I saw that might have been inside there.
Yeah, I posted several of them in there.
Anyway, good.
Yeah. Well, so we
Now
done?
we're back to business. And
All right.
And I'm done.
Yeah, okay.
Well, wait, what have I got today? Nothing too hard. Westland, we're still working on the Westland locks, and it's kind of moving along. I think we'll do something. So that's been an interesting project for me. But we drug this out. It
We
should have been-
did, yeah.
Should have been 5 minutes.
It's 32.
All right.
All right, so we'll let everybody go if anyone's still with us, which I don't know if they are, but anyway, we are adjourned officially.
Wonderful.